Well, the word bankruptcy is never a good word, but as a whole, bankruptcy, the news is actually pretty good right now in the United States. Joining us on this Money Monday is David Seegar. How are you today, David?
I just find yourself.
Good, very good. Now, I was reading some of these stats that you had sent to us, and U.S. bankruptcies are down 14%. Is that correct?
It is, very much so. And in the state of Ohio, they're down as well. And locally, they're down about 8% from the first of the year, which is really good. Just about 2 or 3 years ago, Northwest Ohio was one of the highest places where people would file bankruptcy. So the news is much better for us here in Northwest Ohio than it was as much as 2 or 3 years ago.
Sounds like we're starting to recover a little bit.
Exactly, exactly.
Nice. What's the main reason for people to file bankruptcy?
Main reason for most people to file bankruptcy is some type of catastrophic medical condition that they ran into, and as much as they have all these medical bills, can't pay for them. That is still the #1 reason, about 65% of the reasons for why people would file bankruptcy.
I didn't realize
that's still an
it was
issue.
that high.
Right.
So you know, just thinking off the top of my head, it would be losing your job and not being able to pay your mortgage or your bills.
That's in the mix.
Okay.
But #1 is still medical catastrophe.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course, the main reason, the reasons for improvement is the economy.
Exactly. The economy is improving, therefore people can pay their bills. So that's what the good news is we're bringing here today.
The scary thing about bankruptcy is that so many people are, 1 or 2 paychecks away sometimes from filing.
Most definitely. There's a lot of financial fragile people out there. And as much as, just 1 or 2 paychecks away, and that can make all the difference in the world to them.
Is bankruptcy the absolute last step? Is that something you really don't want to do? Or is it advantageous for some people to take advantage of it?
That is your last resort, and sometimes that is the only resort for a lot of people when they need to do this, particularly in those medical type of situations when they have all these medical bills, no place else to turn. That's what's left to do.
Unsurmountable bills.
Exactly.
Wow. So if the economy stalls, bankruptcies obviously are going to go up, and like we said, people are they're just sometimes right on that breaking point, but it's such good news that right now we're kind of, things are looking better than they have for quite a few years now.
Right.
Well, David Seegar is joining us right now for our second part of today's Money Monday, and we are talking about bankruptcy today. Not a pleasant subject to really talk about, but there is good news about bankruptcy right now.
That's right. In the United States, bankruptcy is down about 14%, and locally it's down about 8%. So that is very good news for our community, particularly since about 2 or 3 years ago, we were #1 in the country for bankruptcy filings.
We were so hard hit economically.
Very much so. That was the reason.
Now, we had talked about the first part last hour about the history of bankruptcy, what it actually means, and this is an interesting story. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, certainly. Bankruptcy means breaking the bench, literally. And what happened was, in olden times, bankruptcy has been around for a long time in terms of the concept. And what you would do, you would go into the center of town, if you want to file bankruptcy, they would give you a bench. You would denote on there who your creditors were, and you would sit on that bench, and then that's kind of like the public notice that we have today, and people throw rotten tomatoes at you and stuff and jeer you and all these type of things. But at the end of the day, they'll give you an axe and you would break the bench, symbolically relieving you of all your debts that you had.
Wow.
Cool. I love that. Yeah, that's really
interesting.
interesting.
Most bankruptcies you mentioned in the first segment are caused by catastrophic illness, correct?
That is correct. Medical bills.
Yeah.
Most
That's
definitely.
about 65%?
65%, exactly. Yeah. So a lot of people think that bankruptcy is caused by maybe people being overextended. That does happen, but fundamentally the main reason is still medical catastrophe in terms of bills people can't pay.
Gotcha.
All right, David. So let's say that I, right now, am facing, I just got the bills, everything's piling up, and I'm thinking, maybe I should just file for bankruptcy. What would your advice to me be?
Well, first of all, take a step back and look where you are. Maybe we could do something in terms of mediating those type of things through credit counseling. That's probably your first step. If that fails, then look at the potentiality of what would it be if I would file bankruptcy, Chapter 7 or Chapter 13. Chapter 7 is total liquidation. Chapter 13 is reorganization of debts. You can keep some of your assets that way and pay off the bills on a schedule you can afford.
So bankruptcy is the absolute last.
The last resort.
So what is it, when it comes to your credit rating, how long does bankruptcy affect that?
Well, bankruptcy will affect it if it's Chapter 7 that you file, it's 7 years. Chapter 13 is 10 years.
Okay.
It stays
Wow.
on your credit report.
And
So
it's
it
there.
dogs you for a
Long
while.
time.
So you
Yeah.
really have to think way into the future when you're considering even
Exactly.
filing. But again, great news that overall, right now, things are looking good. I'm sure that makes you a very happy
It
person.
does.
Absolutely.